بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة فمن لم يجد فبكلمة طيبة وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل معروف صدقة وإن من المعروف أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق أو كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Dear respected brothers, elders, sisters and beloved youngsters, wherever you may be watching this, first and foremost, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's program really is follow on from Monday, where we covered aspects of mental health issues, particularly concentrating on stress, depression and anxiety. And although I gave quite a few examples, I felt the subject matter is so vast, and some of the feedback that we received afterwards, it deserved and it needed further discourse and further discussion on this topic. So therefore today I want to re-emphasize some of the points that I made on Monday, and at the same time elaborate a bit further so that we can, as well as take the ruhani aspect of it, we can also take physical and practical guidelines and advice that we can not only apply it in our life, also help somebody along the way. As I quoted on Monday, approximately 450 million people across the globe are suffering, and only 1/3 of that people are seeking support. That states to me, although it's 450 million people officially recognized, what about the people who are not recognized and unaccounted for globally? So the real numbers, you and I, we can automatically assume is far greater than what it is, according to the research, according to the World Health Organization. So today's topic really is about building emotional resilience. Some call it emotional intelligence. Well, emotional intelligence is part of the emotional resilience. And what emotional resilience in a nutshell is effectively having the art or knowing the art of coping in difficult situations. That's effectively what emotional resilience is. The life coaches, what they call it is an art. Knowing how to deal with challenges, knowing how to deal with the difficulties that arrive in our life, on an everyday life. In other words, we have to anticipate as human beings, as the life cycle goes. You are born, in the first initial few months, there's not a lot you can do. You are wholly dependent on your primary carer, whether it's your older sibling, whether it's your parents, or whether it's somebody else. You're wholly and fully dependent on somebody else. Then as the life goes and you are exploring around you, and you are learning the surrounding, and you're exploring the surrounding, you're developing emotionally, you're developing mentally, as well as developing physically, and you're developing motor skills. What happens is your life takes another turn. Then slowly like that, the life cycle is such that you become 13 and 14. Then you take further changes occurs within you, physiological changes, and further things happen. That's why we call it the terrible teenagers. And then from there on, you become adults, young adults, then older adults. Then you take life responsibilities, you become married. Then if you become father or a mother, and what happens? You take the responsibilities of providing for your family and looking after the community, and so forth and so forth. Then the life cycle reverts back to the original state, as in you start becoming old and you're making preparation usually for akhirah. So within that life cycle, what happens is you will undoubtedly face many challenges, and anticipating that in our head that we are going to face challenges. So what that is, and the psychologists and the life coaches call that an art, knowing how to deal with these challenges that come each time. So once you're able to anticipate that, once you're able to have certain skills, and which I will discuss in a bit, what happens is rather than swimming, what you do, you thrive in that environment. So really your mindset really is how you anticipate that situation. Instead of sinking in the ship, what you are doing is you're thriving in that situation. And that way you can show your leadership capacity. Not only can you look after yourself, you can look after the other people. Look at it from a crisis point of view. What happens in our life is when you're in a crisis, what happens? Everybody is losing hope, or they don't know what to do, and suddenly one person comes in and says, you need to do this, I need to do this, and it takes charge. Because usually what that states and what that suggests is that person has better emotional intelligence or resilience and able to deal with challenges at that time better. So really, what are some of the challenges that we face what are some of the reasons or challenges that we face? So, I mean, I made some very small points. Usually because of loss and separation, we lose someone very dear to us, be it a brother, be it a sister, be it a sibling or a parent or parents in many cases. Or you experience traumatic cases, or you left home to go to first time to university or college, or you left home to be on your own independently. That can also be quite traumatic. If you're not used to it, what it can do, it can cause a lot of problem for you. As we received a question on Monday, we talked about the loss in current pandemic issues and current COVID-19 issues, having a janazah without the full musallis around, and it was quite difficult. Or one of the other issues are, for example, ill health, cancer, terminal illness. How do you deal with that? That can it can affect us in many ways. Similarly, social behavior, not fitting in, feeling an outsider, I don't believe in this community. If you study groups, what happens usually, people align themselves with that person or with those groups where there's some form of commonalities. And it can be as common as same clothing system or same clothing style, or being from a specific background, or having specific knowledge or education or profession. So when you feel that you don't belong or are not part of that group, and what happens is that person struggles to assimilate or integrate within that community. And usually what happens, that person is seen as odd behaved person, or someone who's weird or weirdo. So what we tend to do, we misinterpret that person's actions, behavior, and his, more than likely, that person's intention as well. And what we do, we tend to stigmatize that person. And when you stigmatize the person, what happens is that has a very bad negative behavior. There was a study done quite a while ago. Let me change this again. The study states that if you tell someone that it's the blue-eyed, brown-eyed study. If you tell someone that you're like this over time, what happens that if that person will start to believe to be the case, although he or she is not. For example, it was a study done for example, if you tell someone he's highly intelligent, or you tell them you're very stupid, over time that person will start to believe he's stupid. If you say to someone that you're no good, over time he will start to believe he's no good and behave as such. So eventually what you're trying to do is you are destroying a person's confidence level, you're destroying the person, you make him feel an outsider, so it doesn't fit in. And that can also create a lot of problems internally. Addiction issues. Quite a few of us, or quite a few people around the community, especially within the Muslim community, there was a research done. Usually Muslim communities in UK live in a deprived area. Where there's deprivation, there's substance misuse problems. It's a big issue. That can also have major impact in terms of how we deal with our challenges in life. So the question is, and the question that arises, how do we, yes, we're going through the problems, yes, we will face problems, but how do we deal with that problems on a day-to-day basis? And it's that statement that we need to put into ourselves is either we think or we move and learn certain skills and criteria, skill sets so that we can cope with the challenges. Because remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, we will test you with fear, hunger, shortages of food, health, wealth, etc., life, and so forth and so forth. Yeah? So, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give glad tidings to the people who are steadfast in exercising patience. So we have to understand that at some point we will be tested. It is part of our faith, it is part of our iman, and I stated that in my last bayan as well, that human beings have been created as anxious. So it's something that we need to understand that it will happen at some point. So this is nothing new. But the question is, how do we go about dealing with these issues? Again, I covered some of the points that you need to have a good relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ultimately understand that at some point we will die. When we die, what happens? We will face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we will be questioned on our actions. What did we do? So before I go into the solutions and a bit more practical steps, you know, the people that I deal with usually on these problems, or they're going through anxiety issues or depression issues, I typically ask them a question. I said, look, compare yourself to now and before you became ill. Because this is an illness like any other illness. And we all know the purpose of illness is to wipe away our sins. And that's the most beautiful thing being a Muslim, is that every difficulties, every challenges, every afflictions that we face, what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wiping away our sins, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking us back to the path, and that path is towards the Jannah. And to be close to Him and attain His pleasure and happiness. That is the most amazing thing. If you're a person of faith, you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe in Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this is the belief that we need to have, and this is what's happening. So automatically you're taking away that from yourself. That is a result of my own failure. Actually, it's not a result of your own failure. There is there's an external factor that's outside of your control. Okay? Something can be in our control, like I said to you before, but majority of it's not within our control. So one of the most amazing things that we all have to do, and the first thing that we have to do, we have to recognize that we are one of the 4 people who are facing some issues within our lifetime. That there is a problem. Once you acknowledge that there is a problem, you will find solution straight away, inshallah. Unless you acknowledge that there is a problem, there is no way that you're going to find a solution. Because think about this much. If someone is not hungry, they are not going to eat. There's only so much that you can feed that person. So when they're hungry and they're seeking this out, you can provide them support. And the most amazing thing is when you recognize that you are stressed, when you recognize that you're in a different zone, when you recognize that you no longer fit in the community, when you recognize that you can't go to the masjid to pray salah, or you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you got obsessive behavior about changing clothes, about going to the toilet all the time, washing yourself over and over and over and over again. So what you're doing, you're recognizing that there's an issue. But the most important thing from that is, first, you recognize that there is an issue. Second thing that you need to do, you need to make a concrete plan. How you are going to get away from that zone. The question is, how do you get away from that zone? Isn't that the purpose of today's talk? Absolutely right. Today's talk, you have to understand emotional imbalance, or building the emotional resilience, goes in hand with physical capacity or physical capability. If you're not well physically, emotionally, you will not be well. If you're not well emotionally, physically, you will not be well. It's that simple. So what happens typically when someone's depressed or full of anxiety, they let themselves go. They don't groom themselves, they don't have bath, they don't have shower. There's so many things that they don't do, and they give up. But remember, especially for those people who have responsibility under them, i.e. they have responsibility of looking after their children, i.e. they have a spouse, or they have elderly parents or vulnerable people around them, what's going to happen if you are incapacitated or you're not in a capacity to look after them? Who's going to look after them? That is a very important point that we need to do. A lot of people who go through this feeling, they usually don't love themselves. Usually what happens, they do not love themselves. Fine, I get that. I understand why you're trying to not love yourself, because you feel that you're not worthy, you're not worthy, you're not worthy. Despite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَلَكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you with due proportion. So I get that. So what we need to do is we need to do it for the people whom we love. There's nobody more dearful to us than our children, our wealth, our man. Because حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة, and it carries on. The ayah carries on. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if we have loved ones and dear ones, our parents, our mom, our children, you need to take and wake up. There's a saying, wake up and smell the coffee. You really have to wake up. Because who's going to look after your child? Who's going to look after your spouse? Who's going to look after your mom? Because nobody better than you that can look after them. No matter if they go to the best of a foster home, they go with your brother or your sister, no, but it doesn't matter. They will not be able to look after that child the way you can look after that child. Research states, it's proven, studies have been done over hundreds of years, it cannot be done. Because the attachment that child has with you, the attachment you have with your parent, the attachment that you have with your biological siblings cannot be replicated. Yes, it can be substituted, but not to that level. It cannot be replicated. It cannot be same. So when you separate, the part of the loss and separation, you're literally chopping it off with a hammer or a sword or a knife, whatever terminology that you want to use. It destroys that. So the point that I'm trying to make here is have a purpose and have a plan. The plan is, I'm going to get myself away from that zone. So first, I have a problem. I'm going to get myself away from that zone, and I'm going to do it for my children, I'm going to do it for my mother, I'm going to do it for my parents, I'm going to do it for my siblings. And guess what you're doing? Without you realizing, you are fulfilling your hukuk al-ibad. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? I have created you for the purpose of worshipping me. But remember, worship is two types. One is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, another one is fulfilling your responsibilities to the people who matter to you, or the people that you know, the roles that you have, the roles and responsibility, third-party roles and responsibility. For example, your son, your daughter, your parents, your neighbor, your community, your friends in the masjid, your friends in the school, your friends at the workplace, your neighbor, everybody, they all have rights over you. You got debts, you need to pay that off. You haven't prayed your salah, missed some salah, you must recover that. You missed your taraweehs, you missed your fasting, you must cover that. So when you realize that your purpose is what? To please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you need to have a purpose. So first, recognize the problem. Second, you need to have a purpose. Who are you doing it? In other words, why are you doing it? The third thing is, first, you need to work on yourself. Make a self-care plan. If you are sleeping 24 hours all the time, every hours you have, you don't comb your hair, you don't dress nicely, and you let yourself go, what happens? That automatically gives you negative feeling, bad feelings. You need to lift yourself away from the situation and start taking care of yourself. Self-care is very important. Al-tuhuru shatrul iman. Cleanliness of mind, cleanliness of heart, cleanliness of clothes, cleanliness of the environment, cleanliness of everything. Very, very important. What some people do, they start watching bad movies and this and that, and they're watching other things, distract themselves away from their situation, distract themselves away from the reality, and they end up binge watching. That cannot be done. Groom yourself, cut your hair, brush your teeth, wear nice clothes. Because if you look at the etiquette of a Friday, you're supposed to have a ghusl, you're supposed to put oil on your hair. A lot of the people in the UK don't use oil on the body or on the hair. Actually, Sunnah says, Hadith says, use oil. There is a reason why you should use oil. Because it's nourishment to your skin. It also helps with the dehydration of the, the dryness of your scalp. It really helps with that. Soothing. Bath. Take a regular bath and take it. So that self-care is very critical. When you feel good, when you smell good, people around you will feel good. You will feel good as well. So another thing you need to do, you need to find the right company. And with the right company, you need to open up. You need to open up. You cannot bottle yourself in. You cannot hold all the information inside yourself. You need to release that. That's why finding the right company is critical. You need to keep it. And this is where our role as people who are not suffering from mental health issues or going through depression or anxiety issues, we cannot, and I repeat, I cannot repeat this enough, people, wherever you may be, my sisters, my brothers, youngsters, elders, uncles, aunties, wherever you may, please, do not, and it's a personal request, it's a cry from me, do not judge that person. Just like if a person has had a headache or any other physical illnesses, you will not be judging that person, would you? You will be helping that person. You will try to alleviate the pain of that person. Similarly, if someone is saying, they're going through an issue or problems within internally, they don't know what's happening, they don't know why they're feeling sad, they don't know why they're feeling emotional and teary, please do not judge them. This is the last thing you should be doing. Rather, give them that space to talk. Just by listening to that, subhanallah, you would have alleviated so much of their problems. In fact, if you listen to the hadith, it says, اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة فمن لم يجد فبكلمة طيبة. Basically, safeguard yourself from fire of Jahannam through, even if it means giving half a date in charity. If you don't have a half a date of charity, by using nice words, good words, so soothing words, comforting words. Just say, okay, subhanallah, may Allah make it easy for you. Talk to them, empathize with them. Empathize with them. This is a difficult situation you're going through. How can I be of assistance to you? Subhanallah, remind them of the Islamic etiquettes, that this is a problem from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can get through it together. Problem shared is a problem solved together, inshallah. I lost the phrase from my mind. And another hadith, kullu ma'rufin sadaqah. I mentioned that on Monday. Every good actions is charity. Also, وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ أَن تَلْقَى أَخَاكَ بِوَجْهِ طَلْقٍ. Even meet your friends with a cheerful face. Smiling is a charity. Subhanallah, the month of Ramadan where actions are multiplied, just that little touch. When you feel meeting someone with a smile, naturally you warm up to that person. Naturally you also smile. But doing a stern face, I'm trying to do a stern face, I'm not being very successful. What happens? That naturally creates a tense environment. When you're tense, what happens? You're tense as well. The whole point is you need to release the internal dysfunctionality, internal turmoil, internal anxiety. That's what you're doing. So what we need to do, these are some of the practical things that we can do. What else we need to do, and this is very, very critical really, and I could tell you a story afterwards, is we should start getting into the whole concept of meditation. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, there's a variety of different exercises that we do. But we have to be very mindful of what type of yoga we do and how we do the yoga and where we do the yoga. As long as it's not contradictory to the Islamic etiquettes, for example, we're not wearing tight clothing and going out to other places, that's not correct. Okay? Yoga, stretches, body stretches, we can do that. And I usually do I remember when I was doing some fitness lessons quite a while ago, the person who was the expert within that, he discussed to us around a concept of chi, so internal chi, and they said, and he would say that if you think about it, the Western medication that we use, typically it's about controlling the infections, nothing else. It's not about curing; it's about controlling the infection. And if you look in the current situation, the herd immunity, again, it's about building immunity. So internally, what that suggests that every person, human being, we have a natural system within ourselves that takes care of illnesses through a system called immunity. Okay, so he would say the best time to meditate is towards the latter part of the night and before the sun rises. So i.e. tahajjud time. And he said, if you meditate, if you put your hand like this, just above you, under your belly button, and with your one thumb against the other, I hope you can see this, and you control it, you breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. What that does, it creates complete calmness. But obviously, our mashayikh, our elders, what do they say? They say when you are meditating, doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make sure you think about greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're thinking of greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're also being thankful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that He has bestowed to us. Everything. The fact that we are breathing is a great blessing to Allah a great blessing to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So gratitude. We have to be grateful for all the mercy and all the barakah and all the rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and bestowed upon us. So this is another thing we need to do. When we meditate, we cogitate, because this is part of the physical welfare, physical well-being, you see. Looking after yourself, taking care of yourself, taking care of your appearance, etc. And so when you do that, you need to gratitude, be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, when you're grateful, you start thinking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving me clothing, is giving me shelter. Those people in Syria, in Afghanistan, and in a variety of different countries around the world, in so many different places. Even in UK, there's so many people who are homeless. They don't have access to food, they don't have access to shelter, they don't have access to hot meal. And so many people are disadvantaged. Then from a physical point of view, that some people don't have eyes, some people don't have ears, some people can't speak, some people are mute, some people can't walk and they're disabled. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us so much. Again, what you're doing is, you're building your emotional intelligence, resilience, that it's not only me. So you learn to deal with it. So you're not sinking anymore, you're learning how to thrive. Okay? Other things, the researchers and the professionals, what they say, you should set yourself a goal. 2 more minutes? Okay, I will finish up, inshallah. Then another thing you can do is do charity. When you're doing charity, what happens is you bring in a smile to another person. Naturally, when someone is smiling, what do? We naturally smile back. I don't think I've seen anybody when someone's smiling at them, they don't smile back. What happens? That warmth, that feeling of niceness comes to you. When you're feeling nice, you naturally feel nice. So get a hobby, get a hobby, or start a profession, or start a studies, and that will also keep you occupied, inshallah. So these are some of the things that we need to do. So the key thing from here that we need to do is constant gratitude. Talk to people, don't butt in. When someone opens up to you and talks to you, please do not judge that person, because you're doing charity. Other things you can do, of course, go and see your GP, go and see a professional advice, depending on the severity of that. I mean, there are certain things you need to really seek counseling. You really need to go and see a doctor, and do not think of this as, the biggest thing that I get all the time. A, will I be judged? Will my information be secure? Or will somebody else get to know about it? Please do not share that person's information with anybody. This is amana. That person is sharing the most secret, the most sacred information, the most, what's the word, I can't even get the word out, most intimate details about that person, jazakallah, the most intimate details about that person to other people, and the most darkest secrets that he or she feels cannot share with other people, and that person sharing with you. See that as amana. See that as a way that that person open up to you, and see that as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, because He is giving you an opportunity to do a good deed free of charge. That is the most amazing thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a chance to do a good actions, good deeds free of charge, just by listening to that person. And when you listen to someone, what happens is you will get rewarded. And as I said before, that inshallah every actions will be multiplied many times. MashaAllah. So I hope that's 2 minutes. Is it questions? Yes. Subhanallah. So I hope I have not gone on too long. I could talk about this all day. It's a passion of mine. And I've been dealing with this since 2013. So may Allah Ta'ala first and foremost give me the tawfiq to answer all the questions correctly, and in such a way that is beneficial to you and beneficial to all of us. Everybody say Ameen, inshallah. Ji, what's the question?
Repeat the question.
Inshallah, I will try.
Does building emotional resilience only happen at a certain age, or does it happen throughout your life?
Does building emotional resilience happen at a certain age, or does it happen throughout your life? Subhanallah, beautiful question. Typically, the majority of the studies indicate that emotional resilience is dependent on the attachment level between us and our primary caregiver. And that usually happens under the age of 2. So all those parents or parents-to-be, or those who also have children at a young age, please pay extra attention to our children who are under the age of 2. So typically it happens under the age of 2, but the good news is, don't give up hope. Attachment and resilience can happen throughout the life. Yes, of course, 100%. But it needs extra work. And that means some of the things that I mentioned, embrace your fears, talk your fears, don't judge people, don't worry about what other people are going to say, because people will judge you anyway, no matter what happens.
Next question.
Ji.
I have been told all my life by both parents, especially my father, that I am useless. I am 19 and I have not done well in my exams, and now I feel useless. This is getting me down, and I'm unsure of my future. Can you advise?
Okay, brother, first and foremost, okay, I am 19 years of age. All my life I have been told I'm useless, and right now I don't know what to do. I feel I'm useless now, and I feel hopeless. I don't know what to do, especially my father.
I've failed my exams.
And I also failed my exams, etc. Okay, subhanallah, brother, first and foremost, before I go in anybody, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate your predicament. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take you away from the negative situation. It's a very delicate one, really, because our attachment with our parents is unconditionally. We love our parents unconditionally, and typically they also love us unconditionally. But we have unique ways of showing that love, both ways, that reciprocated in weird ways sometimes, and that can be misinterpreted. And I know some people, they say you're useless, etc., etc. And usually what that I found in my studies and in my research is that we relieve our own fears and anxieties, and the way we feel internally in ourselves, this is what we say to other people. So when I say to you, for example, child or an adult, you're absolutely useless, or you're stupid, you're this, you're that, it's what's within ourselves. Because one of the greatest things about psychology is that every actions that we do, every behavior that we do, every spoken language that we do is a result of what's inside us. Nothing comes out by accident. The question is whether we're aware of it or we're not aware of it. Consciously aware or subconsciously aware. That's one of the things that so people start getting attuned with. So our behavior is a result of how we are inside. Doesn't matter how much you mask inside yourself, it will come out through your body language or your tone of words or how you speak to other people. So now going to your predicament, brother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you with due proportions. That's the first thing. Second thing is you have to understand your role in this world. Your role is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do your best to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? You need to listen to your parents as long as they're not going against the hukum of Islam and they're not telling you to do otherwise. So really, you need to start building a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and talk to your father, talk to your parents and say, why am I useless? What do I need to do? How can I become a better person? But don't question yourself. When you start believing it, it will take time. It will take a long time. But for that, what I would advise you to do is get in contact with me privately or get in contact with us, inshallah, and I will speak to you very in-depthly what I can do and how we can move forward. Because there are specific steps that you need to take, inshallah.
What does a child need to acquire strong emotional intelligence?
Oh, mashallah, subhanallah. What does a child need to build or acquire strong emotional intelligence? Be very good, have very good relationship with your parents. It's part of Islam as well. The hukuk of first, rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then parents. Have a very good relationship with your parents. Talk to them, listen to them, obey them. and you'll see, inshallah, your life will be very good. Because attachment, it comes down to attachment ultimately. If you have good relationship with your parents, it will be very good. And some of the things that I mentioned, reflection, mindfulness, exercise, drinking water, having a balanced diet, sleeping on time, being open with your people, not holding things inside you, having a purpose in life, write a goal down. For example, write a goal. I need to, in 2 years' time, or in 6 months' time, or 3 months' time, or 2 months' time, I want to get from A to Z, or A to C, or A to B. And these are the small tasks I'm going to do. One small step at a time. Don't try to change yourself overnight, or don't expect to change yourself over within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Because if you have lived certain ways for X amount of years, 10 years, 13 years, 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, that's learned behavior. Your entire body, your entire mind, your entire physique, everything is conditioned to be like that. Now, getting yourself away from that consciously is not going to be easy. You are de-skilling yourself and re-skilling yourself. What I mean by that, you're letting go of all the bad habits or bad things that's happened to you, moving to a new environment. So that transition is very hard. That's why a lot of the people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol and substance misuse, they find it really hard in the initial stages. That's why we call it relapse, 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 relapse. So what you have to do, you have to be very focused, you have to be very determined, and you have to think, what do I want in my life? Again, that's the answer pointed to my this young person, and also to the 19-year-old guy.
Next question. How do we tackle hard love from parents?
Subhanallah. I really don't understand what hard love means. How do you tackle hard love? How I would interpret hard love, I wanted to know, what do you mean by hard love? Hard love by your parents. Can you elaborate that a bit more? Because there's a different connotations to it. So I really can't answer that.
Just pick a connotation of yourself.
Okay, hard love, is it controlling behavior from your parents?
Not being given enough love.
Oh, okay, not being given enough love. Subhanallah. You should really tackle that sensitively. Give your parents, there are many books online you can find, or you could get in contact with. We'll recommend some nice books. Mufti Abdul Rahman Mangera Sahab, Munabbir al-Bawa Sahab, Abdul Rahim Limbada Sahab. They have excellent books or excellent lectures on being a nice parent, good parent, and also the responsibility of a child towards the parents and responsibility of a parent towards the child. If you listen to them, inshallah, you'll get a good understanding of how to build a positive relationship. Because relationship is reciprocal, isn't it? If I'm good with you, you're going to be good with me. If I'm evil with you on a day-to-day basis, regular basis, it's not going to be reciprocated. So we need to also reflect on ourselves, is why did it come to that point?
Next question. If a child misbehaves, why does society blame the mother?
Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. If the child misbehaves, why does the society blame the mother? Okay, it's a typical one, really. Oh my, Allahu Akbar. I feel your pain. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease your pain a bit and alleviate all the challenges you're facing. Society can be judgmental and may be very judgmental, and our actions can have major implication on other people's behavior and actions too. And that is one of my core of my talk, is don't judge others. And I mean, those of you who are working within the social work field, you'll realize that, especially those who are fostering, there's children from different backgrounds or different abilities, and when that person is going through tantrums, the entire society or the entire community is very quick to judge that person. And that's what happens. There's not a lot I can answer that, to be honest with you. The reason being is, it's very difficult to control other people's behavior. What you need to do and what you need to ask yourself, and in that sense I include myself as well, what we need to do is look into ourselves. Have we fulfilled the obligation and the responsibility that was given to us in the first place in terms of fulfilling that child's rights? If you've done so, subhanallah, that's your job as done. Whether that person thinks you're great or not, it doesn't matter. Because your relationship is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge you depending on your iman and depending on your niyyah.
the last question. My friends do drugs, which I know is haram, but I'm too weak to say it's wrong. How do I practically build the confidence to be able to communicate their wrong actions and help them stop?
That's a very good question, to be honest with you. I mean, my friends are addicted to drugs, and how do I build practical steps? How do I build confidence to help my friends to give up drugs?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, mashallah. First and foremost, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the ability, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept you as the means for them giving up. Because if they do give up, and it's thanks to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be rewarded immensely. Immensely you will be rewarded, because one of the dangers of substance misuse is that you will never be entering Jannah. There's three types of people who will never enter Jannah. One of them is people who drink alcohol, and from that the ulamas have done qiyas, and they compared that the substance misuse is also equally on that category. So our responsibility should be to speak to our friends according to the language they understand. Obviously, we don't use fahish languages, we don't use bad languages. Give them maybe an article, talk to them in a kind way, show love to them and say, brother, look, it's month of Ramadan. We know it's harming you. Give them some information about the dangers of the drugs. But the question is, and you know, I'm presuming they're 18 and they're adults, or at least late teens. When you're at the age and we have the information on our fingertips, they are doing it consciously. But our job as a Muslim is to remind them continuous basis, without being nagging them and without, forcing them. We need to do it in a sensitive manner, and that means, you know, sharing it here. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And telling them straight. At some time, depending on your friends, how you are with them, how close you are, just need to tell it straight to them. Say, brother, what you're doing is very bad. It's terrible. As Muslims, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We believe in next life. We need to go to Jannah. What you're doing is you will never enter Jannah. Simple as that. We're going to die one day. We need to face. You need to think about that. Sometimes that is needed. Sometimes what you have to do it slowly. Because those who are smoking, those who are taking drugs, no matter how much you say to them, it's not going to go. It's going to go through one ear, out through the other ear. So you need to make it meaningful. So you need to say to them, show to them and educate them on the harm that is having on the wealth, harm that is having on the